Hi everyone, this is William from the Headphone Experience, and this is my full review of the iFi Audio Neo Idsd 2. And this was loaned to me for review by iFi Audio, and this currently sells through iFi Audio at $899. Before I get into this, I just wanted to give a little bit of an explanation. I haven't done a video in 25 days, and I do want to remind you that I do put timestamps on my videos, so if you don't want to listen to or go through an introduction on my videos, just go down to the timestamps and hit details and specs, and that'll jump past the introduction. But anyway, I just wanted to say that it's been about 25 days since I did a video, and I had planned to do this video about 3 weeks ago, and I had hoped to get my year-end reviews in before the end of the year, like between Christmas and New Year's. But unfortunately, we got hit by about 3 weeks, well, 2 weeks really, of extreme weather, extreme winter weather, which is kind of unusual here in southern Missouri. But so we knew that we had really cold weather coming in and an ice storm predicted several days ahead of time. So I had to get a couple of landscape jobs done. And before that even started, then I had to spend about 3 days cutting, stacking, splitting firewood, getting that ready. I do heat primarily with wood. And then we got hit by a really bad ice storm and about 3/4 of an inch of ice on everything. Knocked the power out for 3.5 days. So 3.5 days with no electricity. Roads pretty much impassable because of trees down and the roads all over the place. And trying to heat with wood, but I do have a generator. I have a large diesel generator actually, but I couldn't run it 24 hours a day just because the thing sucks down about a gallon of diesel an hour. It's a 30,000 watt generator. And so I had to cycle it on and off, like 2 hours on, 4 hours off, and then use batteries. I have Ego 56-volt batteries for lawn care equipment, and I have an inverter, so I was able to run the blower on the wood stove for when the generator was off, so I had to use the wood stove to heat, but not my wood furnace. The battery backup would not run the blower on the wood furnace. So the little wood stove and temperatures of like 3 degrees, because ice storm was followed by extreme cold weather. And so temperatures of like 3 degrees, trying to heat the house with a wood stove, feeding the stove like every 2 hours, trying to get an hour here or an hour there of sleep. And this was for a whole week. And then at the end of the week, we get 6.5 inches of snow on top of the ice. The ice never melted last week. So now we're buried in snow and lost the power again yesterday. So anyway, it's just been a rough couple of weeks, and I haven't even had a chance to look at headphones, let alone do reviews. So I'm trying to get back going here again. And once again, I apologize for the long delay. I apologize for not getting into my year-end reviews yet, but I'm going to try to get into those in the next couple of days. And I usually break that into 3 parts. One is headphones, another is amps, and then the other is DACs and accessories. So I'm going to try to work on those and get those going as soon as possible, hopefully in the next few days. So anyway, back to my review. Once again, this is the iFi Audio Neo Idsd 2, and I did review the original Neo a couple of years ago, and I did like it. It was a really good DAC with a pretty decent headphone amp, but it did lack power. I think it was about 1.25 watts per channel, where this is vastly improved in every way. It's a better DAC, it has more features, and it has 5 times the power of the original Neo. So if you heard or tried the original Neo, this is in a completely different ballpark from the other, and it's, I think, only $100 more than the original. So this is a big step up from the original. So let me get into the details. This is a combination DAC, headphone amp, and preamp. And it has 4 digital inputs. That would be USB, optical, coax, and Bluetooth. It has 3 analog inputs. That would be RCA single-ended, XLR balanced, and 3.5 millimeter single-ended, and that's a jack on the back where you can plug in, you know, whatever, an iPod or whatever, and, you know, that uses 3.5 millimeter and plug it into the back of this unit and run. Well, that's analog, so it's not going to go through the DAC, but you use the headphone amp that way. This has 2 headphone outputs. One is a 6.3 millimeter single-ended, and the other is 4.4 millimeter balanced. This is a Bluetooth receiver, and it's advertised, and I don't know if it's still the case because that ad came out probably like almost a year ago, but originally they said that this was the first DAC with a Bluetooth receiver that has lossless 1200 kilobyte per second input or ability. So this is capable of lossless Bluetooth, which I'm not a big fan of Bluetooth, so I don't know a whole lot about it, but I'm assuming that lossless Bluetooth would sound better than the lower resolution Bluetooth I've heard in the past that I wasn't crazy about. Anyway, this fully decodes MQA. It has a Burr Brown True Native Bit Perfect DAC chipset in it. One of the additions of this compared to the original Neo is this does have iFi's X Space and iFi's X Bass, and this also has a feature called Presence, and I'll get into those a little later when I get to the sound and give you my opinions on those. This unit has 4 gain settings on the amp. The original Neo did not. I think it only had 1 gain setting, maybe 2. I sent it back a long time ago, but if I remember right, it was only 1 gain setting. Okay, the original Neo, like I said, I think was about 1.25 watts per channel. This unit puts out 5.5 watts per channel, or 5,500 milliwatts per channel into 32 ohms. So this thing has about 5 times the power of the original, and this does have serious power. The signal to noise ratio and dynamic range, according to iFi Audio, is 120 decibels. The total harmonic distortion, according to iFi, is 0.0015%. Did want to mention that this has a pretty cool display on it here, and this unit can be used either horizontal or you can stand it up. And it does come with aluminum stand. I'll show you in a few minutes to hold it in the vertical position so it's not tippy, but it automatically rotates the numbers and the display. So I don't think you even have to push a button. I think it does that automatically, but it rotates it so you don't have to read it sideways. The size of this unit is 8.4 inches wide by 6.2 inches deep by 1.6 inches tall, and it weighs in at about 2 pounds. It's pretty small, pretty light. I mean, it has some substance to it. It's got a nice aluminum case on it, but it's not super heavy. It's not super large. It's actually perfect for a desktop. And, you know, by tipping it up, if you've got the height, you can really limit the footprint of this thing. Okay, this unit comes with not only, it does have the power supply, it has an external power supply that plugs into the back, and I'll show you a close-up of it in a second. And anyway, here's that little aluminum base that I told you about that basically just snaps on like this. and you're all set to stand this up vertically without it tipping over. You know, if it didn't have this, you just bump it and it'll tip over, but with the stand, it's really stable. So this also comes with a USB cable, an RCA cable to connect to your input, whatever that is, and then a 6.3 to 3.5 millimeter adapter for the 6.3 millimeter headphone jack you see here on the front. Okay, let me try to give you a close-up look. Obviously, you can't see the display because it's not plugged in, but it does have a nice bright display, and I think there's about 4 brightness settings on this, 3 or 4 brightness settings. I think it's 3 levels of brightness, or what's called auto, which means if you don't use any of the controls for like a minute, the display goes dark, and then when you hit either the remote or one of the buttons, it lights back up. Okay, here you've got your on, no, it's not your on off, but this is your volume knob, and also by pushing it, I think you push it and hold it for a second, it goes into your menus, and your menu is where you can access your different, you can access your digital filters and some other features like that. But most of them you can actually, most of the features you can get to right here on the front or from the remote. But it does have a menu. I didn't realize that at first because I didn't see it in the instructions that came with this. I didn't see a mention of a menu. So anyway, if you do push it, hold it, it goes into your menu, and then you can scroll through your menu and then push it to, you know, set whatever you're at. Okay, here on the front, you've got your power button here. You hold it for a second, it goes on. You hold it for a second, it goes off. You've got your input button here to go through your digital inputs, USB, optical, coax, and Bluetooth. You've got your gain switch down here, which toggles through your 4 gain settings. So it starts out at the lowest and works its way up, and there's a huge difference. The lowest setting, I mean, is for like IEMs or super sensitive headphones. And then the top setting, the highest gain setting, is going to power things like the Sesfara or the HE6 from Hi-Fi Man. Very hard to drive headphones, but it does have the power, and I'll talk about that a little more in a minute. Okay, then over here you have your, this is your X space button, and you can go with it on or off. And the X space, well, let me save that for my description of that for my sound part of this. And then this button over here controls your X bass, and it controls what's called presence. And you can, I think you have 4 choices. The first is X bass engaged, so you have a bass boost, and then the second is presence engaged but not the X bass, and then the third is both combined, and then the fourth would be off for both of those. Then you've got your 6.3 millimeter jack for headphones and your 4.4 millimeter balance. The only thing this lacks that I would like it to have would be a full-size XLR 4-pin headphone jack on the front of this, but it would have to be a little bigger for that to fit, so I understand why they didn't do it. On the back, you have your outputs, so this can be used as a standalone DAC, and you can set this to either a fixed volume if you're using this as a DAC, or you can set it so the volume is variable with the volume control on either the front or the remote to use this as a preamp. So you've got your RCA single end outputs, and you've got your 2 3-pin XLR outputs that are balanced. And then over here, you've got your sync connection, you've got your coaxial digital input, your optical digital input, and then your USB digital input. And it apparently doesn't require an antenna for the Bluetooth because there is no connection for one. I guess it's built inside of this. And then you've got your connection for your external DC power supply. And I did want to show you that this part of it here is plastic because that kind of glows. It's just kind of a white glow. It's nothing extreme, but it does look kind of cool. It's just, gives that little glowing effect and looks cool sitting on the shelf in the dark. So anyway, before I get into the sound, I wanted to mention the equipment I used. I used 2 different CD transports into this, the Cambridge Audio 540C CD player as a transport running a digital signal into this, and then also the SMSL PL200 CD player also as a transport only running a digital signal into this. I also used my HP desktop computer as a USB source, and I was running Windows 10 media player, playing back CDs that were ripped to the computer in WAV lossless format. Okay, the sound. I'm going to start out with the tone balance, and I would say this is slightly warm of neutral. It's got just enough warmth that it doesn't sound sterile or analytical. The clarity and detail on this is outstanding. It's way up there. This is one of the cleanest sounding DACs that I've heard. I like that about the original Neo. It also had a very clean, detailed DAC, but it sounded a little bit dry and a little analytical, where this one has a little more warmth and a little more richness to it. The soundstage is very wide on this, and that was the original Neo also had a very wide soundstage, and that one had very good depth. This one has, in my opinion, exceptional depth for a Delta Sigma DAC. Okay, the reason that I really like R2R DACs is they usually have more depth to the soundstage than Delta Sigmas, but this one does rival most of the R2R DACs that I've heard as far as depth. This thing has really good depth, really good layering to the soundstage. It has a very three-dimensional sound that I really like. The power of this thing, once again, 5.5 watts per channel into 32 ohms. I used a ton of different headphones all the way up to the Hi-Fi Man Susvara, and I used the Hi-Fi Man HE1000 SE, the Hi-Fi Man Aria Organic, I used the ZMF Atrium, I used the JM Audio XTC2, I used a couple of Kennerton headphones on this. I used a huge variety. This has plenty of power for any of them up to the Susvara. This does a very respectable job with the Susvara, and it has the amount of clean details and resolution that you need for the Susvara to really appreciate it. So yeah, this has enough power. I'm not saying it's the ultimate with the Susvara. There are other amps that do a little better, like the Hi-Fi Man Prelude that's putting out 10 watts per channel. Gives the bass a little bit more weight, but this is very close. This takes you like 90% of the way there. That's a very expensive amp at $2,500 just for an amp with no DAC. So anyway, does a very respectable job with the Susvara, does a very respectable job with the HE6 SE version 2. And then planar magnetic headphones that need a little less power, like the Aria Organic or the HE1000 SE, more than enough power, more than you'd ever need. In fact, you don't even need to use high gain with those. The third gain setting is adequate. So yeah, tons of power, way more power than the original. That was my biggest issue with the headphone amp in the original Neo, is it did well with easy to fairly easy to drive headphones, but once you got into something like the Susvara or the original Aria that needed a little more power, it it was real good at medium volumes, but it struggled if you tried to get up to louder volumes. So, but this one, plenty of power for any headphone that I've thrown at it. I think I mentioned that this has a choice of 4 digital filters, unlike the original Neo only had 1 digital filter. You did not have an option. And I will tell you that I can hear the difference between the filters on this. If you've watched my videos, I've told you that topping decks, I cannot hear the difference between the filters. But according to Topping's own website, it looks like topping digital filters only affect the frequencies at about 18,000 and up, and at 60 years old, I can tell you I cannot hear that high. I'm lucky if I can hear to 15,000 hertz. So, but this, I can hear the difference. VO amps, or VO decks, I can hear the difference between the digital filters, and hi-fi. I can definitely hear the difference between the digital filters, and I ended up on the GTO filter on this. I can't think of, it was 3 weeks ago that I wrote my notes, and I can't think of what GTO stands for. But anyway, I like the GTO because it seems to have the most expansive soundstage with the most depth. And it's very clean, but the bit perfect is also excellent. I just kind of kept going to that GTO because of it had the most depth of the soundstage. Okay, 3 features that this has that the original Neo did not is it has X space, which basically expands the soundstage. But it depends on what headphone you're using. Some headphones, it really makes a difference and really makes the soundstage bigger. What it does is it kind of takes sounds that are like right here and moves them out here, a little back and a little wider. I'm not sure, I don't really think it adds much depth to the soundstage, but it just takes things that are in here and moves them out there. But like I said, some headphones, it has more effect than others. Some headphones I tried, it had very little effect. Others, I think the HE1000 SE was one that already has a wide soundstage that made it even wider yet. So some headphones, it does make quite a bit of difference and doesn't seem to take anything away from the sound. So I actually like the X Space and did use it quite a bit. And that's X Space with an S if I'm not speaking clearly. Okay, now the X Bass, which the original Neo did not have either. The X Bass, if I'm listening at lower volumes, I really like it. I'm not sure how many decibels it's boosting the bass, but I know on the X-Can, and was it the X-Can or the Zendac or whatever, I know the Zendac had a boost on it, and that was 12 decibels, and it was just too much in my opinion. It would have been better at like 6 decibels. But anyway, I'm not sure of how many decibels a boost this is, but at lower volumes, I really do like it. It gives a little extra weight to the music, and that bass, that kick to the bass that you don't get at low volumes normally, so I really like it. Up at medium to high volumes, it's a little bit too much for me. It makes the bass a little bit overwhelming. I'm not really a bass head, so at higher volumes I wouldn't use it, but at lower volumes, like late night listening or whatever, getting ready to go to bed, trying to relax, the X Bass does, I do like it. Okay, the Presence, which you can use separately or with the X Bass or with the X Bass. You can use all 3 at the same time if you want. The Presence, I can't really describe what that does, but I don't really like it. To me, it makes the music sound kind of thin. So I didn't spend much time using the Presence. Okay, I did use this as a standalone DAC with 2 different amps. The Hi-Fi Man Prelude, which is a $2,500 amp from Hi-Fi Man, and this does an excellent job. That amp is extremely clean and detailed, and this really brought out that cleanness and the level of detail that amp is capable of. I really like this as a DAC going into that, and then combining that with the Hi-Fi Man Susvara, it was one of the best setups I've heard. The only one I can think of that was better was the much more expensive iFi Audio Idsd Pro Signature that I reviewed last year, but that's a $3,250 DAC. That was even better, but this takes you 90% of the way there for a fourth the price. Okay, I also use this as a standalone DAC into the Felix Audio Elise, and once again, really enjoyed it, and I was using the ZMF Atrium headphone, which sounds really good through this by using this as a DAC, and then the Elise, the ZMF Atrium headphone, pretty much any ZMF headphone, just matches up so well with OTL amps that it's just going to sound better. The Atrium sounds great with most solid state amps, but OTL tube amps take it to another level. It just gives it a huge sound stage with incredible depth. So using this as a DAC into the Elise with the Atrium, another incredible combination. Okay, I want to do a few comparisons. Equipment I had in the similar price range. I had the topping A70 Pro amp along with the D70 Pro EES version DAC. That's about a $1,200 stack, so a little bit more money than this. What I love about the topping stack is incredible detail and clarity, incredible resolution, but it does, in my opinion, sound slightly dry and slightly sterile. This is very close in detail and resolution to the iFi stack, but with a little bit warmer, a little bit richer sound. So I've got to be honest, most of the time I would prefer this. The topping stack did have outstanding power, so it did give a little more punch to the bass of the Susvara and HE6, but not a whole lot. And to be honest, like I said, I probably preferred this over the iFi stack most of the time. The Hi-Fi Man EF600, which I think, yeah, it's sitting right here next to me. Great amp and DAC, but this does beat it out a little bit in overall clarity and detail. And the amp, I would say the two amps are similar in power, but this has more features. This has the, choice of 4 digital filters. This has the X bass, the X space, all these different things that does not have. So once again, I would pick this. I think that currently sells for $6.99. This is $8.99. Okay, the Hi-Fi Man Serenade, and I think it's out of your picture. It's sitting up there. Yeah, I'm looking at the little screen on my camera, and I can't tell, but I think that's out of your picture. Anyway, this Hi-Fi Man Serenade is a really nice combination DAC amp that I really like. It sells for $9.99, and it's kind of a toss-up which one I like best. The Hi-Fi Man Serenade is a little warmer, a little richer than this is, and it does have an R2R DAC with great depth, but this does have beats out the Serenade a little bit in clarity and detail. It just seems a little more focused, the sound. And then power-wise, I would say they're about equal, so it's really a toss-up. The Serenade is very nice. It's large. It's in a solid aluminum case, but this does have more features, and this is $100 cheaper. Excuse me, just a second. Let me get a drink. Heating with wood have been for the last several weeks, so the house is a little dry. Okay, see if I can finish this video. What else did I compare this to? Okay, I did not have it here to compare directly, so I'm going by memory. Okay, I had the FIO K9 Pro EES version here about 1.5 2 years ago. And I love that amp DAC. It had an incredible DAC in it. I really liked it. It had a slightly on the warm side of neutral sound to it, similar to what this does. It had extremely a very clean, detailed sound. The only thing is the amp was lacking a little bit in power. If I remember right, I think that put out about 2 watts per channel, which was fine for most headphones, but it wasn't enough for really hard to drive headphones. I didn't have the Sesvara at the time or the HE6, so I can't tell you if it was good with those, but excuse me, it was good with most planar headphones, but some of the harder ones, I think it struggled a little bit. So this definitely has more power and is capable of driving harder to drive headphones than the FiiO K9 Pro EES. And I think that sells for $899, the same price as this, and it's a really nice amp and DAC, I would say, on a very similar level to this. But if you have a hard to drive headphone like the Sesvara or HE6, this is going to do a better job of powering it than the FiiO. Okay, compared to the original Neo, I didn't compare them directly. It's been 2 years, but I would say this is better in pretty much every way. The DAC is as good or better and also has the choice of 4 digital filters that the original didn't. This has the X bass, the X space, and the presence functions that the original did not have. And this has 5 times the amplifier power of the original, which the original was an adequate amp. This is a very good amp. So, like I said, this is a vast improvement over the original Neo, and I think only $100 more. Bottom line, what do I think? The only fault I have with this, and it's a small issue and probably won't be an issue for most, is it lacks a 4-pin XLR headphone output. And the reason that that's kind of important to me is I have like probably a dozen cables that have 4-pin XLR outputs. I've only got, I think, 2 or 3 cables with the 4.4 millimeter balanced connection, the Pentagon connection. So I have a better choice of cables when it has the 4-pin. And I know you can get an adapter to go from 4.4 millimeter balance to 4-pin XLR, but I do not have the adapter. I have the opposite to go from 4-pin XLR to 4.4 millimeter, but I don't have an adapter to go from 4.4 millimeter to XLR. So other than that, I really have no complaints at all about this. It's an outstanding amp DAC, and I think it's a bargain. I know $899 is not cheap, but this is good enough for headphones all the way up to the Sesvara, and it is an excellent match with something like the Hi-Fi Man Aria Organic, the HE1000 Stealth, the HE1000 SE, or some like the JM Audio XTC2, or any of the Kennerton headphones I hook to it. This is compatible with pretty much every headphone, any headphone you can buy. So, bottom line, I highly recommend this unit. And to be honest, this is, I told you I need to do my best of the year videos. This is probably going to be my #1 DAC amp combination under $1,000 this year. It's that good. I think this will probably take the title of #1 amp DAC under $1,000 for 2024. So that's how good this is. I love it. I highly recommend it, and I don't think you could go wrong. So I'm going to wrap this up. Once again, this is William from the Headphone Experience. If this video helped you, please give me a thumbs up. If you haven't joined the Headphone Experience on Facebook already, please do so. And the Headphone Experience on Facebook is up to 35, I think 0.5,000 or something like that. Maybe it's higher than that. I'm not sure. Like I said, I lost touch. When I didn't have power for 3.5 days, I didn't have internet. I didn't have cell phone service. I didn't have anything. And the roads were closed because trees were down. I was cut off from the world for 3.5 days earlier this week. So it's, like I said, it's been a tough time, but I'm going to try to catch up on my videos. So once again, thanks for watching my video.